Bloodborne has been one of my favorite games ever for a very long time. Bloodborne is one of those games that I think it's not overlooked in the sense that you hear about it all the time. You know, you hear people say Bloodborne port, Bloodborne remaster, Bloodborne this, Bloodborne that, but you don't actually see much recognition of it on an official side. So Alex from Podcast Now is here with me today, which all of his channels are going to be in the description down below. And I appreciate you being here, Alex. So we're going to intro you here in a second and say hi to you, but we're just going to kind of be taking a look at how Bloodborne has been treated by Sony, how it does kind of match an unfortunate pattern when it comes to Sony with a lot of exclusives, and just kind of what we think about that and the state of where it's at. And hey, maybe this will go up and maybe the next day they'll announce a remaster, who knows? Even if they do though, it has been quite a while of radio silence without much appreciation for this game series. So Alex, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you, being here to talk to me about this.
Of course, this is an elusive game that I honestly can I break the mold and say one day I really do believe we're gonna get this game back. I actually am on the optimistic side there. It's a mess though. Like I think you can easily say the way it's been handled has been terrible. But I honestly believe it's almost too big to ignore. It's like that elephant in the room, but it's just always there. Like you can't ignore an elephant in your room for that long, right? Eventually you have to move it or lift it or something, right?
It's really interesting to me because there were even things with this that I didn't know were said that have been said in recent months, like just this year. In June of 2024, there was actually a PC Gamer article that I thought was interesting about this, talking essentially about how people were, asking for a PC port of Bloodborne, basically, and Miyazaki saying, if I say I want one, I'll get in trouble, but it's nothing I'm opposed to, and saying that he understood the interest. And he said, unfortunately, it's not in my place to talk about Bloodborne specifically, because, they don't own it, right? And he did kind of go on to be a little vague about it and talk a little bit more about it, saying essentially that I know for a fact these guys want a Bloodborne PC port. He was referring to From Software producer Yasuhiro Kitao, I think I probably said his name wrong, and interpreter Bobby Simpson, but then saying, like I said, if I say I want one, I'll get in trouble. And going on to say, obviously, as one of the creators of Bloodborne, my personal, pure, honest opinion is I'd love more players to be able to enjoy it, especially as a game that is now coming of age. One of those games of the past that gets lost on older hardware. I think any game like that, it would be nice to have an opportunity for more players to be able to experience that and relive this relic of the past. So as far as I'm concerned, that's definitely not something I'm opposed to. And then he had also talked a little bit, I believe, about, calls for it being on PS5 as well, saying that he had great memories of the game. And, it's just kind of unfortunately where it's at is it seems like Miyazaki is kind of between a rock and a hard place, where I think from his statements that if it was in his power to just say, yep, I'm snapping my fingers, we're releasing it again, it's going to be a higher frame rate, higher fidelity, everything, I think he'd do it. But it seems to me like this is kind of caught in Sony limbo, which is something we've seen with how many different franchises now, and even franchises you and I love, like, you talk a lot about Sly Cooper. That's an example of this right here.
Yeah, if we ever get Sly back, I think I would cry publicly on command. But yeah, no, it's like the most recent of, like, when you think about all those franchises, the Killzone, Resistance, Infamous, Sly, etc. They're all pre 2013, right? They're all like, and this game 2015. So this is one of those older ones where they go back into the well for Until Dawn, which I love Until Dawn, and I really hope the rumor is correct that they are making Until Dawn 2. And then you got this game that came out same time as Until Dawn, and it's such a black eye. Is that the right phrase? Like, it's right there for the taking. I feel like, in terms of just my overall prediction, I'll just say it, and then you can go wherever you want with it. My theory is just, I think PlayStation and Sony knows that in order to do Bloodborne again, remade, or even like a remaster, whatever, they need FromSoft. FromSoft has priced themselves out of the solar system, right? They're so valuable. Although PlayStation does actually have like investment in FromSoft, they are still so expensive, and they're, it's so big. that's just my own kind of conspiracy theory where I feel like PlayStation would do it, but they know that if you had anybody but FromSoft do it, I think fans would destroy you. They would come to your house and stuff. So I don't think that'd be wise. I also don't think the fans doing that would be wise. And so yeah, that's just my own thought, is that I think they would want FromSoft to do it, and FromSoft is just so much bigger now, and you're really going to pay them like $200 million just to, you know what I mean, or give them the IP back just to remake it or whatever. Also from FromSoft, like, would they want to? They have a lot, you know, they could maybe do a remaster, but they're working on, I'm sure, bigger and better things in the sense that it's new. They probably are very passionate, and they are maybe bigger things than Bloodborne, getting like that extra polish. So that's always just been my theory. And I feel like the end of the story is that PlayStation one day gives it to somebody and says, okay, we're tired of waiting. We want it back. It will sell no matter what. It might not be received well because of like FromSoft wouldn't do it. We're just going to give it to Bluepoint, or we're going to give it to whoever. They'll do it for us. That's how I think the story ends.
That was actually my next question for you. You transitioned really well here. I was going to ask what you would think of Bluepoint getting it eventually, because, you know, so Bluepoint is an interesting one for me. I have been happy. And now I want to know your thoughts too here when we jump back to you in a second, but I've been happy with what Bluepoint has done. However, I also do understand some of the criticisms of them. You know, so like Bluepoint, I think is a very solid remake, remaster, whatever you want to call them, developer. I think they do a very good job with that. However, I also do understand that when it came to Demon's Souls, as much as I love the remake, I think it's a great game, probably up there in my top 100 favorite games of all time, I would say that there are elements of the original atmosphere that changed, you know, with the remake. And then there are other choices that I would say Bluepoint made that flabbergasted me. So for example, some of the lighting effects, things like that, I understand are going to be different, but you have different ambiance changes, especially in Latria and places like that in Demon's Souls. But then you also have them saying, oh no, we don't actually want to do anything with adding in that, you know, that broken archstone that was actually in the Nexus, where it was a cut area that was going to be the original game of From Software, but then it got cut because they didn't have time, so we didn't actually get that world, right? And then people said, hey, Bluepoint, why don't you add that in? And they said, no, we want to preserve the experience of the original game. So it's like there's things where they change the certain things of the original game. There's things where they preserve the original game very well. Obviously, the remake runs worlds better on PS5 than the original ran on PS3, but you also did have purists saying, now hold on, I think some of the atmosphere is lost. So you have that, but then you also have examples like, I believe, the Metal Gear Solid, you know, collection on PS3. A lot of people felt Bluepoint did a better job of that than Konami did of the Master Collection, you know, on PS5. So I kind of wanted to know what you think about that current situation with Bluepoint, if you think someone else could handle this well, either for a sequel or a remaster, or what you kind of think about that, or even a remake.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, at this point, I feel like anything from it would satisfy an okay amount of people. Like, even if you just do a simple remaster and up the frame rate, etc., etc. Honestly, things that you have done, like Nix's does really great work, right, for a lot of the PC stuff for PlayStation and remasters. So when they do like Horizon, you know, things like that, they are, you know, they're the new Bluepoint. I honestly feel. I think that's why PlayStation bought them. They see a lot of value in what they're able to do with a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's them, because their entire strategy, if you even go on their website, they are in it to do remasters. They're a remaster studio. They're going to be looking at a lot of PlayStation remasters. It's what gives me hope for Sly Cooper, right? So I really think that would be fine. I think Bluepoint's doing other things. I don't really think it. I think it would work, but I don't think they were like in the situation to like adopt, you know, Bloodborne. And then yeah, I mean, it's kind of almost in like the Metal Gear Hideo Kojima thing, where it's like, can you ever make a sequel? And it's like, I'm sure they've talked about it, because, and I mean like PlayStation or Sony, because it's like, it would sell. You look at Elden Ring, it wouldn't sell as well as Elden Ring, but it's probably a 5 to 10 million, you know, selling IP. just to do a new game. So they've probably talked about it because they probably would agree with that, analysis. But at the same time, it's like, well, anybody but From Software doing it just doesn't make sense, or it's going to get destroyed. And then they're too expensive, right? We can't afford to have From Software make an exclusive. I mean, you just can't. FromSoft can never do another PlayStation exclusive, right? After Elden Ring. So I think they're stuck with a remaster, which is, the least work of the three, remake, remaster, and new game. And I don't think you'll ever do a new game, at least not like for an incredibly long time. And then a remake, I mean, I guess they kind of remade Until Dawn, but it's also kind of a rematch. I get confused. So I don't know. I feel like a remaster. You'll eventually, I believe, you'll get a Bloodborne remaster. That's what I think it would be called.
Do you think that there's anything that they could do to kind of fix the goodwill with the community even in the meantime? Because I do. Like, for example, I just kind of wanted to throw out here, it's okay to make money off stuff. It's totally fine. Like, that's your prerogative, right? But they've got things like being willing to, do board game releases where at least there's something, and that's cool. And I actually bought a couple of those and I want to try them out, based off of Bloodborne. They've got the Hunter appearing in the Astro games as like a little Easter egg. They've got stuff like that. But I think that other than that, they've had a general unwillingness to acknowledge Bloodborne, but they've also treated it a little bit like Nintendo has treated some of their properties with fans, where they're not willing to doing anything with it. But then fans come in and they say, okay, well, I'm going to do my own PC port, or I'm going to emulate it. And then they get further along than any official thing. So that already looks embarrassing. Like that genuinely is kind of an embarrassment that fans have come in and they're just like, fine, I'll do it myself, Thanos style. And they're just going to do their own thing. And then you also have, people coming in and making fan games like the Bloodborne karting that the creator of it had to specifically remove the Bloodborne IP from that fan game because of Sony. So it's like Sony cares enough to step in and stomp on fan toes of people who care, of people who want to make a fan video game that's not competing directly at all with anything. You're not selling Bloodborne. Like you're not doing anything with it except on the PlayStation Store, obviously. And Bloodborne karting isn't going to compete with Bloodborne. We can all tell that. Like that's very obvious just looking at it. Like that's just going to be a subset of people who are hardcore fans already. And so I kind of wanted to ask you like what you think about where their community management is at of Sony, like not even just with Bloodborne, with all these franchises. Because I think when you have the Sly Coopers, the Jack and Daxters, the Bloodborns, the Resistance, the Killzones, etc., when you have these and then you treat the fans who do still value them poorly, I think that's where it really becomes a sore spot for people. If you just ignored it, it already sucks. But at least if you were ignoring it and saying, yeah, we're really appreciative of the support, we're appreciative of this and that, and that we had it, you could at least have that facade of caring. Whether they do or not is up to you to believe or not. But I personally think the way that they've treated the fandom around the game is one of the things that has been such a kick between the legs for fans. Like it's been one of those things that's made people, they've gone from genuinely disappointed to angry, seeing thing after thing like that, similar to how people felt Pokemon was treated by Nintendo, and then seeing, fan games like Pokemon Uranium get shut down when they went back to that formula. So I kind of wanted to, know your thoughts on that, of like how they've handled it from a corporate side and how people have responded to that, and just kind of your final thoughts on all of it too, if you want.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like just more like awareness that exists. I think that's always what kind of upsets me with any of their IPs is just, when it comes to like the fan creations, like it's tough because like, people can make what they want to make, right? It's like, I don't know, I'm a freedom of people can do what they want kind of guy. I get it from their end though. It's like you don't want them messing with it, because what if they turn around and sell it, or they put it behind like a Patreon page, which we've seen before. Even some emulators, right, have gotten in trouble because specifically they're funded, and you can't be funded in the way that some of the Nintendo ones were. So, and though I'm not like I'm not here to defend corporations, but I get why they do some of it. I think for me, honestly, like just simply put, just the awareness that they exist. I think that's where I get the most frustrated about any of them. Sly, Infamous, Resistance, Killzone, is just when I feel like PlayStation themselves don't recognize them for what they were. And I'm not saying you need to have a new game every other year. I'm not saying you need to do merch every other day, but just, celebrating the anniversaries is a big one for me. Like on Twitter, right? Just every year when a game turns 7, when a game turns 8, do something, right? Have a little, I don't know, a little GIF, or, just do a post about the anniversary. Yeah, maybe do yearly or bi-yearly merchandise for it. Just do something to keep the game around. It's not even, in a way it's keeping the game around, but also in another way, for me personally, it shows me that you're thinking about it, right? That it's still important to you. It's important to that's what Astro is so good at, right? That's why Astro is so special, is it's a love letter to all of these games, both exclusive and not exclusive. It's a love letter. It's saying you were important, right? That's why the whole Days Gone fiasco that happened around that same time was, I think, pathetic, because it's like, it's a celebration of Days Gone. In fact, the fact that Days Gone is in your game is a good thing, because it's, you know what I mean? And same thing for Bloodborne. Like, Bloodborne being in that game is a celebration of not just that game, but the history and like the legacy of Bloodborne. That's the whole point of Astro. In that way, it's that whole point of Astrobot. So I wish PlayStation could kind of take what Astrobot was doing in a more, kiddish kind of way and just acknowledge it, right? Just say, you were an important part of our history once. Not saying you're going to be in the future, but you were important to us, right? And that's it. You don't have to promise anything in the future. You just were important. And I don't know how much that would do. Some people won't take no for an answer, right? Those kind of, or that kind of way of thinking. So they might not accept that as like the only thing. They might want more. But for me, I think that at least shows the respect, kind of like the legacy that would show me the respect that PlayStation has for it.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I think that for me, the reason I get so frustrated about that fan stuff is because they don't show that acknowledgement. Outside of obviously showing up in Astro, which was one time in many years, we don't really get that acknowledgement of this franchise. I think that that's why when they shut down fan games or say you can't touch that, or they will, vehemently deny hey, we're not working on this, or they'll just go radio silence, any of these things, I think that's why it frustrates me, is because there's behind it that lack of, it feels like they don't care, but they care enough to use it as a legal rod to beat someone with. I think that's kind of where companies like Sony and even Nintendo do end up in hot water with their fans, is they feel like, well, if you don't care, then why do you care that, some random guy in his basement made a Super Mario fan game? Say Mario was abandoned by Nintendo for 15 years and somebody made a fan game, Nintendo would go after it. So it's one of those things where it's well, if you don't care, you don't care. Don't pretend to care. And I think that that's where I think it frustrates people. So I don't know, Alex, I think that was a really good way of saying that you did. Do you have any final thoughts at all before we wrap it up? For me, if they did a faithful remaster of Bloodborne, I think it would be good. If there was a, team that wanted to do a sequel that I do think the options are out there, especially with dreams and these outer gods. And there's actually a lot of gods and beings and aliens mentioned, I should say, in the lore of Bloodborne that we never even see. Just ones that you'll see a ruin, and it's just, that ruin, that blood ruin references that deity. There's a history there in that world. You have alternate dimensions. You have aliens that can come from anywhere. It's I think the options and opportunities are there. I just think, like you said, it's, money, a lack of being willing to acknowledge what already was, a lack of being willing to let fans kind of have fun with it. I think, like I pointed out there too, on top of that, just it drives it home more and makes people more upset. So I don't know, we're going to wrap it up here, but do you have any final thoughts on any of that?
Bloodborne Remaster 2028. I'll mark that. No, I agree with you. I think I personally, again, I think a remaster is the way to go, and I just think eventually I want to believe. I don't know. I'm not always so optimistic, but I tend to be, and I do believe at some point PlayStation is going to realize what they had. I think they've seen glimpses of it. When Sly was, you could actually buy it and download it to your PS5, right when I made that jump. It did unbelievably well. It did better than, I believe, any other game they've ever done that with. So, and then you have Astro. You have a game, I think at some point they're going to realize, hey, we had something with X game, right? And if they do that all at once, I think Bloodborne is one that honestly, they've already looked at PS4 era games because they did Until Dawn, right? They've looked at a game like that, similar year that it released, all that jazz. They've looked at it and said, yep, we want to do something more with that game. I just can't imagine with the success that FromSoft has had, and they know how special those games are and how well they sell. They know how good. Bloodborne didn't do that good, but it definitely did. At the time, it sold PS4s. At the time, it was a reason why several millions of people got a PS4 was specifically for Bloodborne, and that was back then, right? So to do it again now would be, I would say, even more like ludicrous, or in terms of what they could get from it. So I think eventually they're gonna wake up, and I truly believe that. I mean, we'll see, but the second we get like a Twisted Metal or a Sly or something like that, I think like anytime you get one of those, I think the odds of a Bloodborne gets higher. The only thing is just that FromSoft and money, and that's the thing to me, right? Is like, if it costs so much to get FromSoft to do it, will you make that much from the sales? The answer is probably no, because of how much FromSoft is worth right now. So that could be the thing holding them back. I want somebody to do like a tell-all book on this one day, and I don't even know who could do it, to be honest. Jim Ryan, maybe. I don't know.
No, that's very true. And something you pointed out here too that I think I want to say in closing is, you don't want to oversell. So like, you don't want to say, oh, well, Bloodborne is going to be the next Halo. Bloodborne's going to be the thing that makes people buy the original Xbox, right? And then they stick around for everything. But you are right that Bloodborne did sell a lot of PS4s, and now following Elden Ring, it does make me wonder, say you had a launch title, PlayStation 6, assuming they still do discs, which my fingers are crossed, or even if they didn't, if they had a launch title kind of like Demon's Souls Remake, where it was Bloodborne Remake, I do kind of wonder, would that push that console tech, would that push that into the hands of a lot more people, where you're not just trying to sell the game, you're also now pushing hardware sales. So that's kind of a good final closing thought I do wonder about, is if I truly believe Bloodborne does have that power. I believe, especially after Elden Ring, especially after simmering for this long, all the talk of Bloodborne, it is to me approaching kind of the levels of talk of the return of Metal Gear, the return of Silent Hill, where it's like that, it's that conversation that's always coming up in the background of gaming. And I think that if you did do that, it certainly could push hardware. But I don't know, I'll be interested to see what they do with it in the future. I do want to say thank you, Alex, for being here. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to having you in more videos actually coming up soon on this channel and my other channels.
Of course, thank you so much for having me, and we'll be in it together. If they get it, then we all win. We all win if we get a Bloodborne-related thing.
Absolutely agree. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. Leave a like, subscribe. That stuff all helps us out very much. And actually, Alex has all of his channels as well, which are going to be in the description. He does very good work on all those, so I recommend you check them out. I have my other channels there too, and we've got other ways to support this channel. So we appreciate you very much. But hey, check Alex out. He's a good friend of mine. He's not just someone I record with. You probably notice I don't record with that many people. So Alex being here is a testament to his character. I'm a harsh critic. So I appreciate you, Alex. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shui.